They were just two friends on a summer road trip. A hidden waterfall, a quiet night. But when headlights cut through the forest and the axe begins to swing, will anyone live to see the sunrise? This is Fortune Falls, and it's a long way from safe.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and tonight we have quite the terror tale. We're going to go on a little trip and enjoy what's left of our summer season before the joys and fears of fall take over. But before we get to that, I want to say thank you so much for listening to Weekly Spooky. I can't tell you how much it means to me to bring you something scary every week, keeping the Halloween mindset alive and well, even when the sun is hot. So make sure you subscribe because we bring you something chilling every Wednesday, as well as true crime on Mondays. And honestly, you just never know what might drop on a Friday. So, subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. And if you love what we're doing and you want even more of it, head to weeklyspooky.com/join. For as little as $1 a month, you get 2 bonus episodes every single month, as well as over 5 years of exclusive audiobooks, creepypasta readings, and so much more. That's at weeklyspooky.com/join. Head over there and join over 90 other spookies as we wrap up our 6th year of Weekly Spooky. But as for tonight, our tale takes us deep within the wilds of Oregon, where 2 college friends hope to find adventure, peace, and maybe even a little bit of magic. But what they found was something else. Something waiting. Something watching. And when the sun sets on Fortune Falls, the only thing that glitters is blood. We dive in after this. Fortune Falls by David O'Hanlon. Janine and Rose were on summer break from their 3rd year at the University of Kansas. Being from a flat, landlocked wasteland, the Lady Jayhawks usually took their breaks on a beach in Galveston. Then something immensely terrifying had happened the previous year. They'd been on the beach for 3 days. Between surf lessons and volleyball games, all anyone could talk about was this new movie opening that weekend. They'd decided to take a chance and join some of their friends for the first evening showing of Jaws. The next day, they all just sat on the sand. The day after, and every day after that, until it was time to return to school. For the summer of '76, they decided they'd try something different and far away from the threat of shark attacks. Kansas didn't have beaches, but it didn't have mountains either. Oregon was Janine's idea, and Rose had fallen in love with it. She studied the maps and picked the route for their journey of self-discovery. 5 days of backpacking and camping from the isolated town of Sheldon to the Silver Creek Lodge, where they'd celebrate with a final day floating lazily down the Snake River. "We should just camp here," Janine said. "It's going to be dark soon, and we still kind of suck at setting up the tent." "The signs say overnight camping is prohibited," Rose replied. "That couple said it was only 8 miles to the next town." "We'd be lucky to do that in 3 hours, Rosie. Besides, everyone we've talked to has said that we need to see this waterfall at sunrise. We already missed it this morning because you didn't want to get a ride from that trucker. Because hitchhiking is dangerous," she scoffed. "And that guy was gross. He looked like an evil Jerry Garcia." "Scary Garcia," Janine said with a giggle. "Come on, Rosie. Everyone's leaving the park anyway. No one will know we're here. Worst case, some Ranger Smith guy comes by and we make doe eyes at him until he just gives us a warning." Rose seemed to consider it. She looked over to the parking area, and Janine was correct. Almost everyone had already cleared out. The park rangers wouldn't lock the gate until sundown. But with less than an hour to go, there wasn't much to do except feed the mosquitoes. A family of 6 was packing everything into their station wagon. A couple of teens made out on a park bench. Local kids played the last downs of their football game, and a red pickup truck sat, unoccupied, in the far corner of the lot. No one would be around to notice them, and it would be nice to see the waterfall at first light. That had been their original plan after hearing about it from a couple at a diner 2 days earlier. The locals called it Fortune Falls because the water broke up and sparkled like a cascade of diamonds at sunrise. Rose's better safe than sorry approach had set them back hours. However, when they arrived at noon, the sight was anything but impressive. The waterfall wasn't particularly large and only descended some 50 feet to the punch bowl below. After the big show at dawn, most people moved along to the larger recreational areas. It did seem unlikely park services would spend much time locking down the tiny Fortune Falls site. An engine turned over, and Rose glanced around again. The station wagon was ready to go. The winning football team was high-fiving, while the losers collected their bikes from the lawn, and the makeout session was getting hot enough that it would soon need to move to a more private location. That red truck still sat there, however. An ominous feeling came over Rose, but she shrugged it off. She always had an ominous feeling, it seemed. "Okay, we can stay," she conceded. "But we better not get caught." Janine used the sawback of the survival knife to split a thick limb. She tossed one half into the fire and stuck the knife into the ground next to her. Janine's boyfriend, Howard, was in the ROTC back home. He'd insisted she take the knife along, joking that she could use the compass on the pommel to find her way back home. Janine watched the needle settle and looked to the southeast. She knew that somewhere beyond the expansive wilderness was Kansas. She'd never liked it there. Over the last 3 days, she'd come to like it even less. It was boring in every possible way. Right down to the men, she thought, as she pulled Howard's knife from the earth. "2 more days and we'll be at the river," Rose said, folding her map. "There's so much more stuff to see. We could come here every summer and I don't think we'd ever find it all." I don't think I want to come here next summer. Janine whittled at the end of the stick. Jesus, Rosie, just look at it. How could anyone go back to Kansas once they've seen all this? Like, you want to transfer here? Why not? The university is a few 100 miles that way. She pointed with the knife, then checked the compass and corrected her aim. That way. There's an entire ocean nearby. An ocean that's too cold for sharks, too. Didn't Jaws take place in New England? Okay, so maybe they still have sharks, but there's a whole state of this. She gestured to the deep, black wilderness around them. Have you met anyone boring in the last few days? I'm sure I have. Rose couldn't think of any. When did you decide this? I haven't decided anything. Janine sheathed the knife and inspected the point she'd put on the limb. Everywhere we've been this week has been so alive. Kansas is just an afterbirth. It's like God ran out of ideas and just left the canvas blank when he made it. What about Howard? The boys are cuter. Rose laughed. She didn't necessarily agree with her friend, but there was a ruggedness about the Oregon mountain men they'd encountered that was lacking in the Kansas stock. Howard is sweet, Janine continued, but all he can think about is the future. How can anyone give a rat's ass about the future when we have all this right now? Maybe you're right. We got an 8-mile hike tomorrow to talk about it, Rose said. Let's get some rest. We don't want to miss the sunrise showing. We can make sure we have the best view before the gates even open. It's going to be magical. Yeah, Janine tossed the wooden spike into the fire. There's a lot to see tomorrow.
You're not safe yet. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
The tent lit up suddenly from the outside. The bright light shone through the nylon, turning the structure into an oversized lantern, and roused the girls from their slumber. Janine rubbed her eyes, trying to clear away confusion with the sleepiness. Rose groaned and rolled over in her sleeping bag. It cannot be morning already, she mumbled. It's not. Janine sat up sharply. She could hear the gentle rumble of a truck engine outside. Shit. I think we're busted, Rosie. Rose said something, but the words were lost in the sudden rumble of the motor. The light became more intense as the headlights rushed closer. The shower of earth and rocks thrown up by the truck tires rained noisily through the tree branches. Janine watched as the tent's thin skin glowed brighter and brighter until the side collapsed and rushed towards her, wrapped around a half-ton of Detroit steel. Janine couldn't comprehend what was happening, or that the thing that struck her was the truck's bumper. Suddenly, it was dark again. The ravaged tent lay draped over the women. Rose was silent. Janine felt a crushing weight on her right arm. She tried to move it, but the appendage wouldn't budge. She pulled harder. A lightning bolt shot through her fingertips to her elbow from the effort. "Rosie!" she cried out. A gentle sob answered her. The tent rustled wildly. "I can't move, Rose," Janine said. "What's happening?" Rose sniffled. She fought with the nylon, clawing and punching at the tent as it collapsed on top of her. Her voice grew panicked and shrill. I can't get this off me. Why is this happening? The truck pulled forward, releasing Janine's arm from beneath its tire. The ground moved beneath them. Rose screamed. The tent was caught on the truck. They were being dragged. The fabric tore, but not enough to get free. Janine pulled her injured arm close to her body and rolled over, looking for a way out. The engine growled as the driver hit the gas. Rocks and branches tore through the bottom as the tent sped along behind the vehicle, deeper into the woods. It finally came free. The truck's tires slid loudly to a stop. Rose found a tear and worked at it with both hands, forcing it open until she could get through. Janine? She searched the ruins of the tent for her friend, finding a body-shaped lump beneath. Janine! Get me out of here, Rosie. I'm hurt bad. I will. Oh my God. We're in big trouble. Rose stared at the truck, unable to look away. She could only discern the outline of the vehicle in the moonlight, but was convinced that it was the red pickup truck from earlier. The truck reversed, turning around slowly. The back bumper crunched against a tree. The noise snapped Rose out of her paralysis. She wrestled the tent off of Janine and gasped. Her friend's face was a mask of blood. Her forehead was split open in a large gash, showing bone beneath. Rose moved the flap of flesh back over the exposed skull. The headlights shined fully upon them as the truck finished righting itself. Rose leaned close to Janine. "Stay really still," she whispered. "Don't make a sound." The engine revved. The driver did it 2 more times, letting the women know he could run them down with ease. Then the door swung open. A man stepped out of the vehicle, but leaned back inside to get something. He stepped in front of the lights, casting a long shadow over the women. Rose couldn't see any of the man's features, except the distinctive shape of a cowboy hat atop his head, and then the even more distinctive shape of the axe held at his side. "Why are you doing this?" she asked shakily. She clenched her teeth and drew a deep breath. She blew it out and asked again with more force. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" The cowboy moved towards her without a word. He swung the axe onto his shoulder. His walk was cocky and nonchalant. He looked like he was out for a casual stroll. Janine groaned, and Rose shushed her quietly, praying the cowboy didn't hear. If he did, he didn't let on. He just kept walking closer.
Don't go away. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
"Please, stop this!" Rose shouted. She pushed her hands out in front of her. "Just leave us alone!" The cowboy swung the axe one-handed. The blade whooshed by harmlessly, and he placed it on the opposite shoulder, spitting tobacco juice playfully at Rose. He took a backhand swing. Rose felt the hit, but didn't realize the gravity of it until the 3 stumps on her right hand spurted. Before she could respond, the cowboy took a two-handed chop. It struck with the sound of a gunshot and flung her into the dirt. Rose wheezed. Air sputtered wetly out of her collapsing lung. She rolled over, hugged her chest, broken ribs gouged into her palm. Janine shifted carefully in the tent. Her legs were still inside the sleeping bag. She moved slowly to wipe her eyes with shredded tent fabric, being careful not to draw attention to herself. Everything was blurry, but simultaneously all too clear. She could see the cowboy and the axe and her best friend laying on the ground. She closed her eyes again, but it didn't protect her from what came next. She listened to the crack of the axe striking Rose again. "Why?" Rose asked. "Why?" The cowboy answered her with another chop. Rose kept repeating the word, and their attacker continued to respond the same way. Sharp cracks became softer, wetter. Rose's voice got weaker, and then went silent entirely. 2 more chops followed. Janine dared to look once more. The cowboy was kneeling over Rose. He sat on her hips and leaned on his axe. Janine carefully crawled free. The blood pouring down her face slipped past her lips. She knew she'd be tasting a lot more of it if the cowboy spotted her. He probably thought she was dead already. She could have laid there until he left, but maybe he wouldn't have. Maybe he would have used the axe to make sure. She couldn't take the risk. She knew begging wouldn't work. It hadn't for Rose. Once her legs were free, she brought herself into a crouch and glanced over her shoulder. The cowboy was standing, but still seemed focused on Rose. Janine wiped her eyes again. She needed a few seconds of clear vision. She pushed off in a dead sprint for the running truck. She heard a frustrated curse from the cowboy. Janine stumbled, bouncing off the bumper. She pulled herself up and whipped inside the cab. Her injured hand struggled with the shifter, forcing her to use her left. The cowboy ran at her in the headlights. Janine stomped the gas pedal down. The tires spun and threw up dirt. They gained traction as the cowboy grabbed the open door. The truck jolted forward. The cowboy stumbled, tossing himself over the side of the truck bed. Janine swerved around a tree. The rear window shattered, and the cowboy boot struck her in the back of the head. The truck veered hard, throwing her out of the open door. It plowed into a stump. The cowboy flew over the vehicle and disappeared into the darkness. Janine climbed woozily to her feet. She ran. The trees blocked the pitiful moonlight. Branches tore at her skin. Detritus stabbed into her feet. She bounced off the trees and kept on running. She was terrified. She was blind. She was hurt. She was heartbroken. She was flying. Janine laid against the rocks. The water gently sloshed over her face and down her throat, choking her back into the world of the living. The waterfall poured down across the pool from her. She blindly ran straight over the edge in her desperate escape. It was still dark out, but there was nothing blocking the moon at the waterfall, and she could inspect the damage to her arm for the first time. It was swollen, with the skin deeply miscolored. She could move her fingers, but the pain made her wish she couldn't. She knew it was definitely broken. She risked touching her forehead. It wasn't bleeding as badly as she feared, but she chalked that up to being almost out of blood. She knew Rose was dead. She'd laid there and listened to her best friend die. No, you didn't, she reminded herself. You don't know she's dead. Janine looked around for any sign of the cowboy. Not finding any, she worked her way onto the rocks and began her hike back to the campsite. She checked her watch. It was a dainty, pretty thing that she'd picked out for aesthetics, and not its ability to survive a 50-foot fall into a pond. She put it close to her ear. It wasn't ticking. The time was stuck at 3 a.m., but she had no idea when it had stopped. What she did know was that meant there was less than 3 hours until the park opened. She needed to get back to the campsite and check on Rose. Then she could wait for the rangers to come and open the park. The cowboy had to be gone. He couldn't know where Janine had run to, and that red truck, she remembered. It was still there when we left to set up the tent. He would have to leave his truck to escape. He has to make sure I'm dead. He's still here.
More scares to come. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
She pulled herself from the punch bowl and started up the steep incline back to the campsite. Janine was sure the cowboy was looking for her. She wasn't going to make it easy for him. She had to survive. If she didn't, then there was nothing stopping that bastard from doing it again and again. Rose might not have even been his first, and she certainly wouldn't be his last. If Janine didn't get to the police, there'd be dead roses all over Oregon. The hike back to the campsite came as close to killing Janine as the cowboy had. Her arm throbbed as she collapsed to her friend's side. Rose's face was gone, her arms ravaged where she tried to defend herself. There were no errant swings. The cowboy had practiced this. He'd killed before. Janine was sure of that. Rose hadn't wanted to camp there. If Janine had listened, none of it would be happening. "I'm sorry, Rosie," she whimpered. "This is all my fault. And I'm so sorry." Janine scoured at her tears, aggravating the head wound in the process. She looked around quickly. The truck was gone. There were no headlights shining anywhere in the woods, no flashlight searching for her trail. Janine tried to convince herself the cowboy was gone, but she didn't buy it. Maybe he's waiting for the rangers himself, she thought. He could say he got stuck inside and they'd just let him go. He'll be in Canada by the time they find Rosie. That can't happen. It won't happen. I promise, Rosie. It won't fucking happen. Janine rummaged through the wrecked tent until she found Howard's survival knife. She cut a strip of nylon and tied it around her head, pulling it tight to hold the flap of skin in place. A bent-up aluminum tent post made a quick splint for her arm. Once the wounds were taken care of, it was time for other concerns. She'd helped her father cut firewood back home. Swinging an axe was exhausting and slow. She thrusted the knife into the air a few times. That wasn't slow at all. She found her belt and attached the knife to it, but could only manage to scrounge up a mixed pair of their hiking boots. Rose's pack was mangled, but the metal flashlight on the side had survived. Janine inspected rogue stitches on the face of the pack. The Jayhawk patch Rose carefully centered on it was missing. The idea of the cowboy taking a trophy turned her stomach. She envisioned him mounting the patch over his mantle with souvenirs from other kills, like the antlers her father had mounted back home. Janine took the light and started towards the parking lot. The red pickup was sitting in the corner spot, exactly where it had been before. Janine dropped behind a bush and watched for movement. There was still no sign of the occupant or any other axe-swinging psychos. Janine stayed low, crawling along the perimeter of the lot. With still no cowboy present, Janine made her move on the truck. She broke into a crouching run and rolled to the side of the vehicle. It hurt more than the TV shows led her to believe. Her heart skipped. A sudden dread washed over her. There was something wrong. Or, more correctly, nothing was wrong. She peeked around the front of the truck to inspect the bumper. It was rusty and dinged up, but she'd seen the truck wreck into a tree. The crash she'd heard must have done more than a few dents. She moved down the side and checked the back glass. It was intact. It wasn't the cowboy's truck. So, where the hell is he? She looked around frantically. There were no other trucks, no other anything. She was completely alone as far as she could tell. She'd seen the tire tracks all the way from their campsite back to the parking lot. Rose's killer had definitely driven out the same way he'd come in. She clicked on the flashlight and set out for clues. She shined high first, hoping to catch a glint off the truck or to spotlight the son of a bitch himself. When that didn't work, she moved the light down to search for tracks. A metal door clanged behind her. Janine spun, waving the flashlight around for the source. She froze. The light hung on the blocky, concrete building that housed the bathrooms. Each had a steel outer door that could be padlocked during the off-season. Janine snuck to the restrooms and waited. She didn't hear anyone inside, but knew the door was too heavy to have blown in the barely present breeze. She sat the flashlight down on the archaic water fountain. Janine drew the knife. It was uncomfortable in her left hand, but it was going to be a lot more uncomfortable in the cowboy's belly. She pulled the outer door and pushed the other inward with her foot. No one chopped it off. Janine sprang inside, keeping the knife close to her body. A chunky, disheveled man threw his hands into the air, hiking his "Keep on Truckin'" shirt over his belly. His eyes flicked to the knife. "Fuck! Shit!" He shook his head violently. Be cool! Be cool!" "You motherfucker!" Janine hissed. "Where is it? Where's the truck?" "Right outside." The man pointed shakily. "Not that truck." "That's the only one I got." The man shrugged. "I know the sign says no camping, but stabbing is a bit fucking extreme, lady. Aren't you supposed to write me a ticket or something?" "Camping? Who are you?" "Phil." "Why did you try to kill me?" "Kill you? Lady, I went to jail for being a conscientious objector. I don't even kill bugs."
Did you hear that? Better check the locks on your doors. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
"The park is closed," Janine snapped. "Why are you here?" "Fleetwood Mac is playing in Boise this weekend." He let his hands fall, slapping against his thighs. "I stopped here to score some weed from a buddy. I got super baked and fell asleep by the falls. By the time I got back, the gate was locked." Janine hadn't gotten a good look at the cowboy, but she was sure he had been slimmer and taller and didn't reek of marijuana. She leaned against the wall and started to cry. If Phil wasn't the cowboy, then she'd failed and the axe murderer had escaped. Phil took tentative steps towards her, patting the air as he went. "Please don't stab me," he said softly. "You look really banged up. Let's go to my truck and get you some help. It's a Dodge. It'll crash right through that gate." "What time you got?" Janine asked, sheathing the knife. Phil checked his watch. 5:15. About an hour until anyone comes to rescue you. Guess that makes you my shining knight. You, drew the short straw then," he chuckled. Janine let Phil help her off the wall when a bright light assaulted her eyes. "What are you two doing here?" a strong masculine voice demanded. "The park is closed." The man moved the light back and forth between their faces, keeping them both blinking and blocking their eyes with their hands. "Whoa, dude, chill with the light," Phil whined. "This lady needs help. She was attacked." "I know," the man said. The flashlight clattered to the floor. Janine's vision was blurred, but she could make out the curves of the cowboy hat. The axe split Phil's face and stopped in the back of his throat. Phil stumbled backwards, bounced off a stall, and came forward. "Woo-wee!" the cowboy exclaimed. "We got ourselves a dancer!" He grabbed Janine by the hair and pulled her close to him. "You see that?" he asked. "Means he's dead, but his body don't know it. I love when that happens. I wonder if you'll be a dancer. What do you think, dollface? You want to dance with me?" Janine pulled the knife and brought it down into the cowboy's thigh. He howled and let the axe fall. Janine twisted the blade and jerked back, but the knife didn't budge. She could see the strands of meat caught in the sawback. Since it wouldn't come out, she went back in. She worked the saw through his thigh until the cowboy whipped her away. Her face smashed into the wall, breaking teeth against the cinder blocks. Janine slumped down. The axe sparked off the wall. Janine rolled away, Her boots slipped in Phil's brains, and she toppled against the sink. The axe shattered the porcelain. It continued downward, hacking into Janine's foot. She fell on top of Phil. The cowboy straightened his hat and limped to her. He took the axe handle with both hands and rested the blade on Janine's forehead. He took each hand off in turn, rolling the wrists in preparation for the killing blow. "Why are you doing this?" Janine asked. "Someday one of you will ask an original question," he said. "It's always, why? Well, Dollface, why not? How about that one?" He raised the axe high to show his might. The asbestos tile overhead shattered, raining down dust around the cowboy. The distraction was just enough for Janine to move her head. The axe buried into Phil's body. The cowboy wrestled to free it from Phil's oversized belly. Janine kicked the protruding knife with her good leg. Her attacker fell, smacking his head on the wall. Tobacco juice rolled from his lips across his fancy Western shirt. "Well, I'll be damned, Dollface." He stretched for his hat and used the trash can to pull himself up. "I reckon that's a pretty fine answer to my question." He put his hat back on and unsnapped his shirt pocket. He held up something for Janine to see. He squeezed it into a ball and tossed it to her. "I think I've had enough sport for tonight. Sooner rather than later, I'm going to see you dance," he promised. Then he was gone. Janine lifted the crumbled Jayhawk patch. She crawled frantically for the exit. A truck engine rumbled to life outside. Janine used the door handle to come to her knees and forced her way outside. Her face hit the ground. She pushed herself out into the lawn in time to see the dark blue Ford pulling from behind the outbuilding. Janine was helpless to stop him as he plowed through the gate. She rolled onto her back and held the patch to her chest. She watched moths bounce off the dim, yellow light overhead. The sound of the truck faded out, and she laid there, alone. Janine wondered if the cowboy was a man of his word, and somehow knew that he was. If she lived, he would find her, and if she lived, she'd make damn sure she was ready for him. Well, my spookies, I hope that story helped you get into the mindset of maybe having one more little nature trip before the weather turns cold, or maybe you'll just save your money and stay home. I mean, there's got to be something to watch on streaming, right? Thank you so much for joining me as we enjoyed yet another great, terrifying tale from our good buddy David O'Hanlon. And there's a whole lot more where that came from, because in October we're doing 31 shows in 31 days right here at Weekly Spooky. That means that every single day in October there will be something scary and fun to enjoy. So make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss a thing. And speaking of, if you love what we're doing here, we could really use your support. And in exchange, you get all kinds of sweet bonus content to make sure you're chilled all the way to your bones. Just head to weeklyspooky.com/join. You'll get 2 exclusive bonus shows every single month, as well as audiobooks, creepypasta narrations, and so much more. And I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters. These are folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Johnny Nix, Kate and Lulu, Jessica Fuller, Mike Eschewey, Jenny Green, Amber Hansford, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. Thank you all so much. And if you want to join those spookies in hearing your name at the end of the show out of my spooky, silky voice, just head to weeklyspooky.com/join and select a tier at the $15 a month or higher. It really does make a huge difference as we are wrapping up 6 years of Weekly Spooky, and I intend on another 6, but I need your help to make that happen. So now I'm going to get out of here and get back to work because we have something scary that'll be waiting for you this Friday. But for now, for myself, for my executive producers Rob Fields and Bobbletopia.com, my producer Dan Wilder, and my composer Ray Mattis, I'll talk at you later, but I won't ax you anything.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.